Welcome. It's the Matic. It's the illest blerd in the land. Welcome back to Blerd. Welcome back. Let's just our hardest working blerd on YouTube. Let's get into today's new video. And I mean, I've been hearing a lot about this. I've been seeing a lot about this online. And honestly, I'm like, well, is this a real thing? Or is it not a real thing? So the Russo brothers don't believe in superhero fatigue. Marvel is out of touch with their audience. So when I think about this this topic, because this is a topic, honestly, I think the Russo brothers may have somewhat of a point with this. And I don't completely agree with them on this, but let's talk about it. So the Russo brothers were asked about pretty much superhero fatigue, meaning that studio may have had multiple flops, meaning Marvel studio. And you know what? I definitely kind of agree with this whole superhero fatigue when it comes to the MCU. Honestly, when I think about it now, it does kind of make sense where they're coming from. The first thing that stood out for me is maybe Marvel Studios are losing touch with fans when it comes to I guess attention span. Now, this right here, I don't necessarily agree with, because I've been to the movies quite a bit, right? And usually when I go see like a Marvel movie, there is a crowd there. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time. And for them to say like, oh, well, attention spans. Look, I went to see 2-hour Marvel movies, 3-hour Marvel movies. You know what I'm saying? So you mean to tell me that the attention span of fans is why they're probably running out of theater? Nah, I don't think it's that at all. I think it's more to it though. So, honestly, the other point that was brought up by the Russo brothers. Now, this one, I can understand where they're coming from. Maybe Marvel is having a generational gap, meaning that their audience that they may have had at some point when it comes to success for their Marvel MCU is not the same audience they had years ago, right? Thanks to the first big Marvel movie had a huge success was Blade. But maybe the audience is kind of growing and evolving, meaning that you have younger kids that's into Marvel. When it comes to it, you have people that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and then older people that are into the MCU. And maybe they're having a hard time catering to maybe a certain audience, right? Because when you think about certain TV shows, and I want to include movies as well for the MCU, certain ones are geared towards certain audiences. Like if they were like Daredevil, prime example. Daredevil is more of a mature comic book character. Spider-Man is more kid-friendly, but adults will be willing to see that. And then you have She-Hulk, and then you have all these other Marvel characters. And maybe finding a particular audience is a struggle when it comes to it. Now, has Marvel catered to certain audiences? Of course. Black Panther, the first movie, second movie, they were catering to the black audience. Let's be real. When I went to go see Black Panther, it was mostly black people there. Were there other ethnicities there? Yeah, I'm not going to act like they weren't, but it was catered to that. When I went to go see Shang-Chi, there were Asian people there. You know what I'm saying? Not a lot, but there was a certain demographic that they were aiming for. And maybe with Marvel doing this, sometimes it's not completely helping the film, but then sometimes maybe it is, depending on the type of superhero it is. So maybe catering to the audience sometimes has its pros and cons. But the Russo brothers also mentioned that maybe Marvel is getting a little too repetitive, and maybe they need to go with new storylines. Now, this is why I said they're out of touch. Because if they listen to the fans to some degree when it comes to what the fans want for a Marvel Cinematic movie live adaptation. Maybe this could change, right? Because if we're asking, hey, we would like to see a Scarlet Witch solo movie, which we still haven't seen, by the way, right? Or maybe a new Scarlet Witch TV show. Maybe this is something that we want to see. And if you guys are not exploring new stories and only the old comic book stories, that can get a bit repetitive because some of the newer stories could be fleshed out into a movie. I'm not saying every single new comic book should be turned into a movie based on Marvel characters that have been around for years. I'm just saying, Marvel, let's take more risk. Let's take more risk. Let's see what you guys can do with newer stories. Maybe the fan base does have a generational gap, but like take certain aspects and elements from maybe some of the old stuff, include it in a new story, and see where it goes. The other thing is that I see with Marvel, and this is just my personal take on it, they need to find more directors that are really into the comic book source material, like literally just wanting to stick with that and make it into a masterpiece. I mean, yes, they have Sam Raimi, all right? Sam Raimi did a great job with Spider-Man. Did a great job with Doctor Strange too. But we need more directors like him that are really invested in doing comic book movies, making them comic book like, and not just, hey, we're going to stray away from it. Because Sam Raimi did not do that. That is another issue with Marvel. It's like, hey, get directors that care about your brand. The other thing is writers. Have writers that are really into the comics. You know what I'm saying? Because then you can tap into, all right, you got a decent director, actors, but the writers also are a part of this successful formula when it comes to a movie. I think Marvel is still struggling. The Russo Brothers, I think they're a little bit in denial that super fatigue is not a real thing. When it comes down to it, I think it's real. I think fans are wanting new things explored for movies, and we just haven't seen something that stands out recently. Because I mean, even Captain Marvel 2, that was a big flop. And maybe they need to go back to going back to the comic book source material. And I know they've talked about it because the TV head of TV department and also movies mentions that we need to get back into the original source material, meaning the comics, because when they were straying away from it, like how Kevin Feige had put it at some point, it wasn't clearly working. You know what I'm saying? And they need to go back to something that's familiar, even if it's new things that need to be explored for a comic book live adaptation. This is why Marvel is struggling right now, because you guys wanted to go and stray away from the comics. Let's do something completely different. And it's not always working out in their favor at all. But you guys tell me in the comments, do you believe in superhero fatigue? Also, do you think the problem with Marvel Studios' success is based on a generational gap, meaning that they have different audiences and they're trying to cater to a particular one? You send me comments, guys. A blerd living word, guys. Thank you so much for commenting, liking, subscribing, and I'm out, legends.